What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Flippin' from Japan. I am here at Shinjuku Central Park. As you can see and hear, it's beautiful. There's a lot of noise. There's a waterfall right behind me. There's what I think is cicadas being very loud, so thank you to them for joining me here live for this wonderful episode. This episode is the Day 5 recap. Day 5 was another good one. The theme of this trip is just how unbelievable and life-changing it has been. And Day 5, we're about to get to it, was no different. Started at the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame, which is connected to the Tokyo Dome. So, you go to the Tokyo Dome, you might as well go to the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame, which is right there. A lot of cool stuff in there. There's Shohei Ohtani shrines, and Shohei Ohtani is not in the Hall of Fame there yet. He will be, but he's not eligible to enter yet. But his stuff is all throughout. The first pitch he ever threw in a professional game in Japan is there and signed. So is the last professional pitch he ever threw in Japan. So that's cool. There's some cleats there. There's a bat. There's a signed jersey. There's a lot of very cool Shohei Ohtani stuff. The one thing I want to mention here before all the things inside, you really gain an appreciation for how rich and deep-rooted baseball is in the Japanese culture. I had no idea. There is 100 plus years of history in this Hall of Fame. You know, if you've been to Cooperstown, think Cooperstown. It's not quite as big, but there's plaques everywhere. Hundreds of plaques on the wall of players from past, and some players I knew as well. Hideo Nomo, Hideki Matsui was there. Plenty of guys. Ichiro will be inducted there soon, but he has stuff everywhere there. One cool thing I really liked, there was a Babe Ruth poster, and you may not think you'd be going into the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame and seeing Babe Ruth, but that you do. A big, massive poster of Babe Ruth. It was really, really cool. Now, the reason for this is because a long time ago when Babe Ruth was playing, there was basically a Major League Baseball all-star team put together to tour around Japan. In the course of the however long they were there, almost 500,000 people. It was 500,000 people came out to see this team. They went from stadium to stadium, visited a bunch of different sites, and 500,000 people came out to see them. And Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, tons of big-time guys that I love and want to go see at the Hall of Fame. You can go to the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame and see that poster of Babe Ruth. But it's really, really cool. It says Japanese, American at the top. It's kind of a combination of both cultures, which is really cool to see. But the history there is so deep-rooted. I love walking around. I took it all in. There's two WBC trophies. WBC World Baseball Classic that is coming up here in a couple of months. In March of next year, the World Baseball Classic will be back underway. Team Japan won it in back-to-back years in 2006 and 2009. They have the trophies sitting in the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame. A lot of videos playing from those teams as well. It's really cool to see all that. The baseball history in Japan. You know, part of the reason I'm out here was to learn a lot more about Shohei, but also to really just dive into the Japanese baseball culture. And being at the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame, I learned a lot about it and just how deeply rooted in history it is here as well, which many people in America might not understand. You know, this baseball is the #1 sport in Japan. And I think in America, look, baseball is known as America's pastime, but we don't really realize how massive how massive of a role it plays here in Japan. It is so important to this culture, and you can really feel it. I feel it just being here, and I felt it again going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So it was cool. And I recorded a podcast yesterday from the Baseball Hall of Fame. But from there, I went to a meetup. A planned meetup that we had, it was in front of the Tokyo Dome. We had promoted this one for about 24 hours. I had no idea the response I would get, and I truly mean no idea. As you all know from listening to this, the response I have gotten here has been overwhelming. It has been unbelievable. But you never really know. Like, you plan a meetup, how many people are going to come? Was it going to be 10? Was it going to be 50? Was it going to be 100 people? I walk around the corner for this planned meetup, and there were hundreds of people. Hundreds. The first thing I noticed, one, all of the people. Two, the signs that were made. Welcome to Japan, Ben. Ben, we love you. There was a Flippin' Bats sign. It said, Flippin' Bats, thank you for making baseball fun for everybody. I love you. A little girl, probably 8 to 10 years old, made that for me. And it was the Flippin' Bats artwork. It was so cool. It made me very emotional. I'm becoming a big sap. Who am I kidding? I've been a big sap, but out here I've been emotional quite a bit. And this meetup was special. There were hundreds of people. As I mentioned, probably 200 people when I first walked around the corner. I get there, I say hi, I wave, I say, let's go Shohei Ohtani, and then I just started taking pictures and signing autographs. And at one point, I was probably 10, 15 minutes in to signing and taking pictures with everybody. And I looked around, and the crowd had grown. There were probably altogether 300 people that had been there from start to finish. This was planned for 1 hour. I was going to do a 1 hour meetup. How much can you fit in 1 hour? A lot. And it wasn't enough. I ended up there for 2 hours. I had producers saying, hey Ben, time to roll, are you good? And the answer was no. My goal was to take a picture and sign an autograph if they wanted for every single person that was there. And I am proud to report that I did it. There were still people around when we were leaving, but I think it was people that were just too shy to come up and say hi because they were just taking photos, not with me, but of me. But of everybody that wanted a picture, I did it. And that was really cool. But it wasn't without tons of autographs, tons of smiling, tons of stories that I will have for a lifetime. One woman traveled 4 hours. 4 hours just to be there, to see me. What? Are you kidding me? And, you know, I've said this a few times, but with every single day, I start gaining a more and more and more of an understanding of what this is. And I've said in the past, this isn't about me, it's about Shohei. And that is true, but there's more to it. The appreciation here, the love and respect and the outpouring of enthusiasm to seeing me. It's about Shohei, but it's about I am their voice on the other side of the world. They can't speak English. I am speaking it for them on the other side of the entire world. And that becomes so apparent the more and more I've been here. The thank you. The people are typing on their phone in Japanese and Google Translate and telling me what they want to tell me. People are saying thank you. And this is what's becoming so apparent. I am the voice of so many people here. I am their voice in America. And man, how is that not an emotional thing to hear? That's special. That's really, really special. And a lot of responsibility. I'm fine. I talk a lot about Shohei, and I feel like I do it well, and I do it almost every day. But it's a lot of responsibility to hear what I've heard out here, and it's really special. And this meetup wasn't without its gifts. I have accrued 100+ gifts to this point. And every single one has meant so much to me. I have gone through them all. I appreciate them all. Anything from candy, food, ramen, beer, jerseys, pictures, paintings, magazines, earplugs. I mean, wind chimes, I could go on and on. But it's all back to what I said. It's just a massive appreciation for me doing what I do on the other side of the world. But, it's not even just me to this point. It's not. I have producers here with me. and they've been in pictures of mine out here. I've talked about them in episodes. I talked about them in the very first episode. One of the producers almost burned this all down. We almost didn't even get to experience all this because his beef jerky got taken before we even got through customs. But guess what? As I'm talking about the producers, more and more people are starting to know them. And at this meetup, they were taking pictures. Pictures of them, pictures with them, drawing pictures of them. One of my producers got a picture drawn of him, like a caricature. And it was great. I love it. It was to a T. It was perfect. It was the detail was great. And guess what? I know I told that story day one about the beef jerky. I got beef jerky yesterday to give to the producer that couldn't get his beef jerky in here. Multiple people brought packs of beef jerky just for him. How cool is that? Also, how cool is that for the Flippin Bass community? Like, you're listening on day one, and 4 days later, you're bringing that producer beef jerky. That's just really cool. So, the day was already unbelievable. That could have wrapped the day there, but it didn't. Yesterday was a jam-packed day. Probably the longest day we've had here. Day 2 or 3. One of the days in Iwate was a very long day as well, but this one rivaled it for sure. So from the meetup, went to NHK. NHK is the biggest news company out here. The biggest news source here is what I've been told, and I went on the news live. So I got asked to do that from the meetup, got in a van, went there. It wasn't too far away. It was pretty late at night here, so pull up at night. It's a massive building. I didn't know what to expect, but on the way there, I was told, hey, this is the biggest news source and millions of people will be listening. To which I thought, wait a second. I'm in Japan. I don't speak Japanese great. I'm learning. But I'm going on a live newscast with millions of people listening for an hour. We get there, the experience again was just so cool. Walk in the building, get taken upstairs, escorted upstairs, where I have a room where me and my producers could sit that said Fox Sports, Ben Verlander. It was my dressing room, my waiting room. Had a room to go there, and then it was time to go into the studio. I got to go in before I had to go live, because there was a rehearsal and stuff. I went into the studio, and it was beautiful. A massive studio, lights, plenty of props, tons of Shohei Ohtani. There was a life-size Shohei Ohtani, like, cardboard cutout. There was one of him pitching, and there was one of him hitting. Because I don't know if you guys have heard, but he does both. And they have one of him doing each in the studio. There were also tons of Angels props. The Mets and the Yankees were playing the day I was there. They had their jerseys side by side. The Cubs and the Cardinals were playing as well. They had their jerseys side by side. It was such a cool set. The control room was massive. I work at Fox Sports. There is no limited space for control rooms. There is a control room everywhere I turn in Fox. And there are big, massive control rooms. This was just as impressive as some of the ones I see at Fox. So when you think this news station, think, whoa, this is a massive, massive production. So I walk into this, to the rehearsal, we rehearse everything, and then it was showtime, and let me tell you guys what happened. They wanted me to start the show. So this big set, there are podiums around the set. Nope, not me. I was starting the show front and center on the middle of this set, in the middle of everything, and I had to speak some Japanese. Now, let me remind you guys, this is a Japanese show, a Japanese baseball show. I don't speak Japanese. I speak somewhere between 15 and 20 words at this point, and that's growing every single day. And I feel like I feel like I'm doing pretty well with my Japanese, but I don't speak Japanese fluently by any means. I had to start this show in front of millions of people. It was just me saying, hi, I'm Ben, welcome to, you know what, I'll just do it. I said, what's up? I'm Ben Verlander. Welcome to World Sports News, World Sports MLB, Hajamario, which means let's go. I had to do that live in front of millions of people. I did it, I nailed it, and then I was on the news for an hour with this crew, and it was special. It was a really big production. The people I was doing it with was great. The questions were really cool. Now, if you're wondering how it works, I had an IFB in, which is I could hear in my ear. When I would get asked a question live on the show, I had somebody in the control room relaying it in real time in English into my ear. Really cool process. Really, it was wild. But we did it. I did it. I also ended the show. Just an awesome experience. I was a little nervous for that, by the way, but did it. Had a lot of Shohei questions. Had an Aaron Judge question and Albert Pujols question, but the NHK experience was a wild one. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you love flipping bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.